Hello, and thank you for joining me on another one of my adventure travel series videos. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dmitry and I'm an American expat living in the Philippines. If you find this video entertaining, please make sure to like and subscribe to my channel. And now sit back, relax, and enjoy as I take you on an exciting adventure of the time-lapse traveler. Hello and welcome to a very special series that I've been looking forward to making for a long time. Knowing that our remaining time in the Western Hemisphere was pretty limited before we were to make our move to live in the Philippines just over a year later, we wanted to visit the most unique destinations in this part of the world. Now, it's hard to imagine a place more unique in the whole world than Cuba for many different reasons, some of which I'm going to get into here. And others I'll be going more into depth in my upcoming sequel to this episode. In this video, however, I wanted to focus on the experience that my wife and I, along with her colleagues, had while visiting this tropical island nation. The good times started even before the six of us had a chance to leave the airport after landing in Havana and look for a ride to get all of us, along with our luggage, to the first destination where we would be staying. We saw this awesome looking party bus, that being a yellow van, next to a serious looking yet smiling chauffeur named Enrique, who ended up being our guide around the country for the 2-week duration of our trip. When we met him at the airport, we immediately knew that we had to look no further. Enrique turned out to have a really glowing personality, and his van was just the ideal size to get us around comfortably without splitting up into separate vehicles. Then, as now, I enjoyed making video tours of the various points of interest. I just wish that I had done more of it despite not having a nice camera. Although we hired Enrique to chauffeur us around the different parts of the island and to take us to other cities that we would visit on this trip, we didn't give all the business to him when it comes to touring around the capital city of Havana. There is only one proper way to do that, and that's by riding in a classic American muscle convertible with the top down and the sun on your face. As soon as we landed in the capital city of Havana, we felt like we were transported into a different point in time, not just a different country, which happens to be so close to the coast of southern Florida. But being here, it might as well be 1,000 miles away, or some alternate history that is hard to believe is actually real, like a fictional movie that we were all taking a part in. In the winter of 2017, we were still living in New York City, and it only recently became possible to get a visa for making a trip to Cuba from the US due to the easing of the diplomatic tensions between the two countries. Chris, being proactive in the visa processing matters, was able to secure us all the necessary requirements to make this journey surprisingly easily, considering the near total blackout that existed until just a couple of years prior to this. Chris also helped to coordinate the plans for the whole group to visit 3 different cities around Cuba, and for all of us to get on the same flight, maintaining the same itinerary. Back when I filmed this, however, I wasn't yet into making vlogs for YouTube, and so I didn't follow the steps that are now so standard for me when putting together a travel video. I also didn't have a camera which I considered good enough for such a task, primarily due to lack of stabilization in what I had to work with at the time. There was no way for me to know about the fairly effective stabilization feature that I would someday be using to edit even the shaky videos I was making back then, the results of which you are seeing now. Although this is something that I plan to explore extensively in one of my upcoming sequels to this video, it's necessary to mention that since the early 1960s, the US has maintained a near total economic embargo on Cuba, so that the country wasn't able to enjoy access to the world's markets and was forced to be stuck in a time capsule of the past, a policy that is largely kept in place to this day. As of now, Cuba resembles many other countries all around the world that don't have an advanced economy, but what really sets it apart at just a first glance is seeing their cars. Just about the only vehicles that can be found on the roads are those that were imported from Cuba's closest neighbor, that of course being the US, before the embargo took complete effect in 1962. This had led to a unique car culture that cannot be found anywhere else in the world. People here really know how to take care of their cars because they can't just simply go out and buy a new model. The most modern cars are the ones that were brought here by the Soviet Union, the only economic ally prior to their own collapse in 1991. It was so wild to see some of the same cars that I used to see on the streets of Kiev, Ukraine, when I was growing up there as a kid in the 1980s. We even had a chance to ride in a Lada, a car that my family used to have when I was growing up in Ukraine, before emigrating with my family to live in New York when I was 9 years old, which was 2 years before that country's exit out of the Soviet Union. To own a car in Cuba is to have a personal symbol of independence, which creates a great sense of pride. Because importing anything into Cuba, let alone a car from the US, is still impossible, the ones that do exist come at a heavy premium price. For anyone to own a car in Cuba, it means being able to work for yourself and to have a chance to make a reasonably good living. Due to their great value, cars are often turned into family heirlooms, which are passed down from one generation to the next. Many of these classic cars have received significant alterations, such as more efficient 4-cylinder engines as a way to fight the high gas prices. Another popular mod is installing a propane tank in the trunk to enable the vehicle to be powered by a cheaper alternative to gasoline, or to retrofit it altogether in order to be able to use diesel instead of gas. Since it's so hard to find replacement parts, Cubans were forced to innovate by collecting spare parts from the newer but much less reliable Soviet-era cars that have been imported from the USSR, such as the very familiar Lada and the high-end Volga, for their lesser-grade parts that put a unique Cuban flavor into the classic American muscle cars. Since 2009, the Cuban government has been importing a small number of Geely vehicles as well as some other Chinese vehicles to use as police cars, taxis, and rental vehicles. It is also possible to find a rare occurrence of Japanese and Korean cars such as Mitsubishi, Toyota, and Hyundai. Unless the economic embargo ends, the vehicle landscape in Cuba isn't likely to change anytime soon.
The house we stayed in 3 nights.
Our first stop was a 3-night stay at the home of Adriana, a foreigner herself who emigrated to Cuba from Colombia in order to build a better life for herself here. She frequently rented out her extra rooms to foreign tourists to help her with her income. Our home is in a prime location of the city, just a few blocks away from the University of Havana. Chris and I, along with her colleagues Igor and Angela, as well as her friends Mary Faye and her brother Paul, are all avid travelers. But of all the places that we've been to, I think I can speak for all of us that Cuba was by far the most unique destination. We definitely had a great time exploring the city of Havana for the 3 days we were there, before heading out on a pretty epic road trip in the Happy Yellow van, with Enrique as our chauffeur and guide, who shared some of his experiences of living in Cuba, and the slow but steady set of changes that the country has been going through, with a slow trickle of private businesses that brought with it at least some level of economic mobility and freedoms that the people of this nation so badly need. Well, I hope that you've enjoyed this first episode of the Cuban trip that I had with my friends back in the tail end of 2017. I also hope that you will come back for the upcoming future episodes of this exciting series where we visit a public school, a National Historic Museum, and discover the network of tunnels used in the defense of the city during the height of the Cold War, explore the home of the legendary novelist Ernest Hemingway, and learn about his contribution to the literary world. Join a massive New Year's celebration, and party with the locals and other tourists in some of the many fun spots that we got to enjoy during our travels around Cuba. I will also go deeper into the history and culture of this vibrant yet repressed country, with its complex past and a bright look for the future. If you did enjoy this video, please hit that like button. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Always take care of yourselves and each other. And of course, keep looking out for more videos coming at you from the Time-Lapse Traveler.